Your kid says, I'm annoyed, and most parents hear attitude. What Professor Ho-seon Lee, one of Korea's most respected family counseling experts, hears is something else entirely. She says when a child reaches for I'm annoyed, they're almost never actually annoyed. They might be sad, embarrassed, scared, but annoyed is the one word in their vocabulary that doesn't require being vulnerable. It's a lid. But here's what makes this more than a decoding exercise: the ability to name your emotions, to actually separate I'm annoyed from I'm embarrassed, from I'm scared, isn't just a communication nicety, it's a survival skill. A child who can identify and express what they feel can protect themselves. They have fewer conflicts. They navigate relationships. And they grow into adults who know what's happening inside them before it drives them somewhere they didn't mean to go. Today, we're going into Professor Lee's framework for building that. From how your own language shapes your child's, to what the TV quietly does to their development, to something almost no parent says out loud. Professor Lee starts with a definition. Emotional literacy is the ability to separate your emotions, to explain and express them. And in doing that, to also notice the emotions of the people around you. That second part is the one most definitions miss. It's not just about you. The child who can say, I'm not annoyed, I'm actually disappointed, is also the child who notices when their friend is having a hard day, when a teacher is stressed, when to push and when to back off. Emotional literacy is a social skill, not just a personal one. And it's protective. A person who can express what they feel internally encounters fewer conflicts because they communicate before the situation escalates. They don't simmer and explode. They say the thing when it's small. Professor Lee frames the parent's job around two words: independent and democratic. Independent doesn't mean self-sufficient in the rugged solo sense. It means knowing what you're supposed to do and knowing when and how to ask for help. Democratic means knowing how to protect your own rights and responsibilities without trampling on someone else's. These aren't political concepts. They're relational ones, and they both start in the same place: a child who knows what they're actually feeling. Here's the part that might sting a little. Professor Lee says, until a child starts socializing, until they have teachers, classmates, coaches, when they meet an adult and open their mouth, what comes out is essentially what they heard at home. Their attitude, word choice, how many words they use, how long they wait before responding, all of it reflects the parent's communication level. She's careful here. This is not a shame point. It's a developmental one. And she pushes back on the idea, common in early parenting circles, that personality is fixed before age 7. Early experience shapes about 30% of personality and attitude. The other 70% comes from learning, new environments, and the people a child encounters over a lifetime. There's enormous room to move. Her framework is the concept of degree of differentiation, how logically and rationally a person solves problems. It operates on two levels. Individual, how well you separate your own identity from others, and how well you separate emotions from logic when you need to think clearly. Family and environmental, the average level across the whole household, which is essentially what a child absorbs as their baseline. Then she distinguishes fluid intelligence, mostly innate, roughly equal across people after age 25. From static intelligence, which is environmental, grows with experience and is what actually drives social life. And then she says the line I keep coming back to: language is the flower of intelligence. You don't create language. You grow up hearing and processing what's said to you. And that becomes your language. She can usually predict a parent's intelligence just by sitting across from their child. Her conclusion: passing on good language habits matters more than good genes. So if language is the flower of intelligence, and your child's emotional vocabulary grows from the language they hear at home, Then what quietly shapes that environment without anyone noticing? Professor Lee makes a distinction most parents haven't considered. Audio, audiobooks, podcasts, stories playing in the background is genuinely good for children. When a child listens, they build the world themselves. They fill in the faces, the rooms, the emotions. Imagination is the active ingredient. The brain is working. Screens are different. Visual media does that work for them. Everything is shown. Nothing is left to construct. The child is still. And a still child doesn't grow. The reason these two feel similar but aren't comes down to how they were designed. An audiobook or radio program knows you can't see anything, so the language does all the work. It's rich, complete, built for ears. A TV program assumes you're watching, so the spoken words are often half a sentence without the picture. Look at that! There he goes. When the TV plays in the background and nobody's watching, the audio left behind was never meant to stand alone. It's linguistically thin. And it's loud enough to stop everyone else from talking. And that's the real problem with the ambient TV, the one nobody's actually watching. When it's always on, it becomes the speaker of the household. And when the TV is the speaker, nobody else is. Conversation stops. Back and forth stops. The family is physically together, but nobody is talking. And a child who isn't in conversation isn't building emotional vocabulary at all. Turn it off when nobody's watching. The room gets quieter. The people in it start talking again. So we've been talking about what shapes the language environment at home. The words children hear, the conversations that happen or don't. But there's one part of the home environment most parenting content tiptoes around entirely. What happens when parents fight in front of the kids? Professor Lee doesn't tiptoe. Her starting point: unpredictable households are hard for children. When parents fight, a child's immediate automatic response is, which side do I choose to survive? All survival instincts activate at once. This isn't dramatic. It's just how children work. The emotional safety of the home, the very foundation we've been building toward, suddenly feels uncertain. But here's where she surprises you. She doesn't say fight in private. She says children know anyway. The tension reaches them regardless of closed doors and lowered voices. What matters far more is what happens after. Her advice is specific. Tell the child why you fought. Tell them how you resolved it. Tell them what you decided. You don't need to share details. You need to communicate that it's over, that you sorted it, and that they don't need to worry. This creates predictability, and predictable households let children relax. What the child learns is not that parents fight. They already knew that. They learn that people fight and make up. They learn how to troubleshoot a relationship. They learn that conflict has a resolution, and that home is safe on the other side of it. There's one more piece Professor Lee adds, and it's the one that completes the picture. We've talked about your child's emotional vocabulary. We've talked about how your language shapes theirs. But there's a version of this that nobody says out loud. What happens to all of that on the days when you genuinely cannot stand the sight of your own child? Every parent she has counseled has had those days, not needed a break, not felt tired, could not stand them. And she doesn't respond with shame, she responds with logic, because here's what she's observed. When you get angry at your child in those moments, it is almost always your own limitation of self-control, not the child. The child didn't change, your capacity did. Which means the work of raising an emotionally literate child starts with the same work on yourself. When you are well, physically, emotionally, you can name what you feel before it spills. You can hear "I'm annoyed" and respond with curiosity instead of matching frustration. You can model the very thing you're trying to teach. Professor Lee's advice for the hardest days: raise your child the way a grandma would. Think long term. Grandmothers have already done this. They know the difficult moment passes. They know it goes fast. They're not inside the panic. They've come out the other side. And her final word, find the humor in it. Children are genuinely funny, even when they're insufferable, especially then. The child who grows up watching a parent name their emotions, repair after conflict, and find lightness in the hard moments. That child doesn't just say, I'm annoyed. They say what's actually underneath it. If this episode shifted even one thing, the way you hear, I'm annoyed, the way you think about the TV, or the permission to be imperfect on a hard day, hit subscribe. This is where we translate the best of Korean parenting science for Western parents, and Professor Lee has more coming. Drop a comment. Which section hit closest to home? The emotional literacy piece? The language as mirror? The fighting in front of kids reframe? Or the one about genuinely not being able to stand them? I read everyone. And sometimes they become the next video. Next week, we're switching gears to something a lot of parents of boys will recognize immediately. Your son says, but everyone else does it. You try to reason with him. He has a counter for every point. And somehow you're 20 minutes in and nothing has changed. Minjun Choi, a specialist in boy education, says the answer isn't a better argument. It's a completely different approach. I'll see you there. See you in the next one.